delighted to be here with you to talk about one of our very favorite topics, which is eating for brain health. And some of the information you probably will have heard before, but I think we'll also share with you some things that may be new to you. So I'd like to introduce Joan Benz, who is the program administrator at Sharp Again Naturally. She's going to help us tonight with the questions in the chat box. And that reminds me to say, if you have questions, please do put them in the chat box and we will take them at the end. As you know, Joan is going to be muting everyone and we will be recording the webinar. So we wanted everyone just to be aware. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you'll hear tonight. Say something about who Samantha and I are, and Sharp Again Naturally, for those who may not know. And we're going to talk about food being such an important part of our brain health, as well as obviously the health of our bodies. And they're so intricately, involved with one another. And the nutrition piece is really only one among many factors that influence brain health. And we'll be talking through what those others are. We're going to talk about the basics of brain nutrition and digestion, talk about not just like what we eat, but also how we eat. And we're going to be sharing with you some action steps that you might want to experiment with after tonight is over. And maybe you'll share with us at the very end, what might be one step you might take after hearing the presentation tonight. So just briefly, I'm Lisa Feiner. I've been a health and wellness coach for 20 years and have also been involved volunteering with the elders during that time. I'm a board member of a nursing and rehabilitation facility here in New York. One of the founders of Sharp Again Naturally and the current board chair. I'm a brain longevity specialist, and I work with individuals and families, speaking with them about brain health. And Sharp Again's almost 10 years old, so I've been doing this for a while. Samantha?
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be with you all. I'm Samantha Anderson, and I'm speaking to you from my home in Brooklyn, New York. I am, like Lisa, a national board certified health and wellness coach. And I received my coaching education from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. And like Lisa, I too specialize in brain health and reversing and preventing cognitive decline. I have a private practice, I'd like to say here in Brooklyn, but these days it's virtually. And I work with clients on lifestyle practices like nutrition, sleep, and stress reduction. And I'm excited to be working with Sharp Again as a health coach. And with Lisa, we're going to be launching a new coaching program later this fall, which is all about food and using it to optimize brain health. And Lisa and I are going to talk more about that later in our program.
Thanks, Samantha. So we just wanted you all to know that we are not doctors, we're health coaches, and we don't give medical advice. So anything you hear about tonight, we encourage you to speak with your doctors about if you have any questions at all. So about Sharp Again Naturally, who are we? Many of you know, but we are a nonprofit who educates, empowers, and supports everyone to take an active role in optimizing their cognitive health using a scientifically based multi-therapeutic approach. And everything you're going to hear tonight is based on research. This doesn't come out of the blue, and we will be preparing actually a very large document that talks about all of the research that goes into supporting really everything that is on our list of causes, which we'll share with you in a moment. Um, our long-term vision is potentially idealistic, but it's a world where dementia can be prevented, treated, and reversed. I mean, we're seeing so many cases being treated right now and people regaining their cognitive health, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives, which means that there are doctors and health coaches and other practitioners who can help people stay cognitively healthy and regain their cognition. We're getting much, much closer to this vision than we were even 5 years ago. So that's very exciting for us to see. So a lot of people say, how do I know what's really normal and when would I want to seek help? The thing about memory lapses and memory loss today is that now we know that since there is help to be gotten, it's important to take action as soon as you know that something's not quite right. When there was no treatment, it really didn't make a difference, and people tried to cover it up as long as possible, and not, it was really a source of shame and a stigma. But we'd like to say that's not the case anymore. And there are these different stages of cognitive decline that many of you might be familiar with. So you start with subjective cognitive impairment when you yourself know something may not be quite right. And we're saying that's the time to get help. If it's not treated, it will probably progress to mild cognitive impairment where there are symptoms, but people are still very functional. And then that progresses to moderate cognitive impairment where people are having difficulty with daily tasks, and usually you need help. You either need a dedicated caregiver like a spouse or an adult child, or you have to have an aide come in. And then finally it progresses to severe cognitive impairment when someone would need help 24/7. So we'd like to just stop for a moment and ask you, each of you, to rate your overall level of nutrition on a scale of 1 to 10. How well are you eating? We'll talk a little bit more about what that really means. Might even think about how you feel. And have you thought about making any changes to your eating habits? Maybe that's why you're here tonight, because you have been having some of those thoughts. So just make a note of that. So I'm going to quickly go through the causes of memory loss that have been identified by Sharp Again Naturally and our Medical and Dental Advisory Board. And each of these causes, as I mentioned, is supported by research, and we continue to monitor different causes or different aspects of our lives as we learn more. So we'll talk a little bit more about what some of those might be. But the first is nutrition, which we'll talk more about tonight, and the gut microbiome. Toxins in our food, water, air, work, and home environment. And unfortunately, those have become more prevalent, I'd say, in the last 15 to 20 years. Effects of prescription and other medications. So those are not just side effects, but also interactions, sometimes going on a new medication or coming off a medication. The next group, heavy metal toxicity. So that is a type of toxin, but we know that many metals such as lead and mercury are particularly neurotoxic. Hormonal imbalances. So these are all the gender hormones, things like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. When those are low, it's problematic. Thyroid, again, low thyroid can also cause memory issues. And then if you have high cortisol, that also can cause inflammation in the body and cause problems with memory. And then we look at low-level infections, things that you may or may not be symptomatic with, or even be aware of. So these are infections that sometimes reside in the mouth. Could be Lyme's disease or exposure to mold. I mean, I was exposed to mold last summer, even without knowing it. Food sensitivities. Again, that traces back to the gut microbiome, where you may not even you may feel not as well after eating certain meals, but not know that you really have a problem, or that there's inflammation in the gut. And urinary tract infections, notorious for creating confusion, sometimes delirium, and memory issues. Inadequate physical activity, mental stimulation, and social interaction, we call those the lifestyle causes. Prolonged stress, so short-term stress, we call it, just that kind of stress that might give you a little extra boost and get you through fear of speaking, for example, or trying something new. That's one type of stress. But when we have stress that doesn't go away, and we don't kind of get back to a normal level of relaxation or homeostasis, that can cause problems for the brain. Sleep and breathing problems. So we're talking about not getting enough sleep, not getting maybe certain types of sleep, which are important for brain health. Breathing problems that might be caused by things like asthma, but could also be caused by sleep apnea or a narrowed airway, which the dentists who are specializing in this are seeing in children now, unfortunately. And then physical and emotional trauma. And we really wrote a lot about this last year. But I think with COVID, the kind of emotional anxiety and trauma that people have been feeling, they felt also was affecting sometimes their cognitive health. We're looking at hearing loss is also, there's a very high correlation, for example, with hearing loss and brain health. Another thing that we've become aware of is osteoporosis and brain health. So these are things that are now not yet being talked about a lot, but that Sharp Again is monitoring. And as we learn more, we put out articles and things on this. So I'm going to turn over to Samantha to now take us into a deep dive into nutrition.
Thank you, Lisa. So the last slide had that list of 10 factors that cause memory loss, or that can, and you saw that the number one key area is that Sharp Again has identified is nutrition. So we know how important nutrition is as a lifestyle factor that can help our brains. And actually, way back in the 400 BC era, there was a Greek physician named Hippocrates, who that name you may be familiar with. He is said to have coined the phrase, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." So we've been working with food as medicine for a really long time. That doesn't always mean that we heed the message, but food is indeed therapeutic. And so tonight we're going to be talking about all the ways that nutrition affects our brains. So nutrition provides, good nutrition, I should say, provides our bodies with energy and fuel that can optimize all of our body systems. And these foods are important carriers of critical nutrients, which hydrate and detoxify, sending oxygen throughout our bodies, and importantly to our hearts and our brains. And when someone has poor nutrition, they might be eating lots of processed foods, carbohydrates, etc., sugar. That can create inflammation in our bodies and toxins, which can build up. And this inflammation can damage our gut and cause fatigue and brain fog. And, you know, we know many of us, 1 in 4, have some form of depression and anxiety, which we're often medicating, but food can also be used as a mood booster in many, many ways. So Lisa mentioned we're not doctors, we're coaches. We want to emphasize that we're not prescribing a specific diet tonight. We like to think about this more like we're talking about a lifestyle for brain health. And when you're practicing a lifestyle, you're going to find that the food is absolutely delicious and satisfying, and it's going to provide you with a feeling of satiety or fullness. And you just don't get that same kind of fullness from processed foods. So this is great stuff. So let's break some of the principles down. Number 1, and I know it's hard to start with something that says limit, but I'd like to suggest that we try to limit our consumption of what's called simple carbohydrates. So that's sugar, that's white bread, refined grains, anything really that's white. GMOs, that means genetically modified organisms. Foods often have the label now that identifies that as GMOs because they are harmful. Other processed foods that you want to eliminate or put into the limit list are grains and sometimes for some people it's dairy. All these foods can cause inflammation. And sugar in particular, we were just not built to eat the amount of sugar and starch that we currently consume. And it leads to chronically high insulin levels. And our cells are basically saying, hey, wait, it's way too loud in here. Turn down the volume. And those cells start to create resistance to that onslaught of sugar. And brain insulin resistance, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about Alzheimer's disease. It's often present in cases of people with Alzheimer's. So if we can tame the inflammation, then we're helping our brain. So I know that's a lot of food we're asking you to limit and even eliminate, and this may feel very overwhelming. We like to say, start slow, keep it simple, manageable, don't do it all at once. You're gonna start to feel great and you're gonna want to continue. Next up, we have healthy fats, and we want to focus on healthy fats from high quality sources. So you see on the list there, we have walnuts, olives, coconut oil. I'll explain what SMASH is in a minute. Avocado, seeds, flax, chia, seaweed. Fat fills you up. I talked about satiety or fullness. Fat is calorically dense, and so it's really hard to kind of eat too much fat. And I know that fats are a little scary to people. For many people, we were told for decades, low fat is the way to go, but that thinking is really slowly turning around. And we know how important fats are for brain health. And in fact, the brain is about 70%, 60 to 70% fat, which I think is a really interesting statistic. So you see the word SMASH up there. SMASH is salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Those are the SMASH fish that are filled with amazing fats. And the omega-3s are the specific type of fats. Avocado, olives and olive oil, wonderful sources of fat. You want to try to find olive oil with the highest number of polyphenols, and some of the olive oil bottles actually state the quantity of the polyphenol. You want to try to find cold press oil and buy oil in glass jars because plastic, Lisa talked about toxins. Plastic can the oil in a jar of plastic can actually leach, and that plastic then gets into your body. So glass prevents that from happening. We want you to go nuts for nuts and try to get fresh nuts, organic when possible. Soaked and sprouted is best. I could go on for about nuts for a while. I love them. Next up, we have large quantities of greens and rainbow colors on your plate. So all the colors of the rainbow. Examples are arugula, Swiss chard, red cabbage, watercress, colored greens, kale. Cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli are antioxidants, which means that they are detoxifying and protective. So we want to aim for about 6 to 9 cups of these fabulous rainbow colored vegetables. If you can tolerate that, just keep on increasing the amount as you can tolerate it. And try to challenge yourself every time you go shopping to try a new vegetable. If you've never heard of it, pop it in the basket and see what you think of it. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about herbs and spices, which are wonderful for, I call them the pharmacy in your kitchen. They're just sitting there in the cabinet, pop them out and shake them on your food. They're fabulous therapeutic herbs and spices, which have been used for millennia. All of these gorgeous rainbow foods provide you with important nutrients and vitamins. So actually, Lisa, you can head to the next slide. We want you to also think about pesticides and, sorry, not pesticides, not there yet, artificial flavors and colors and sweeteners. So look at the labels. I know that's a really difficult thing. And in the class that we're going to do, I would love to be able to teach folks about how to read a label, but this is a really important thing because these artificial flavors and colors and sweeteners, they're tucked into nutrient labels, and many of these substitutes we have learned are cancer producing, and they do a lot of other damage to our health. So it's best to avoid them when you can. We encourage prebiotics and probiotics. I'm going to explain what those are. So both of these types of foods are really important for our gut, for digestion. They help cultivate healthy gut bacteria, which then helps with digestion. So prebiotic foods are tubers and roots. They're growing right now seasonally in the Northeast. Some examples of prebiotic foods are artichoke hearts and garlic, onions and leeks. And you want to cook them minimally because when you cook them, some of the fibers can be destroyed. So cooking them minimally preserves some of their power. Now, probiotic foods are also fabulous for fostering this amazing bacteria in your gut. And those are things like sauerkraut and pickles and kimchi and olives and tempeh, which is fermented soybean. So I'm just talking a lot about vegetables and putting them all together for you. It's a heavily plant-based lifestyle. I'm not going to call it a diet. We want you to hydrate for cellular health and detoxification. And a good rule of thumb for the amount of water to drink is about half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 120 pounds, you want to drink about 60 ounces per day. I know that's hard, but you can find some fun, hopefully PBA-free water jugs and keep track of how much water you're drinking. Oh, look, I have a few sitting right here on my desk, so you can check that. Like, I think Amazon sells them. Your local store may. Pesticides, definitely you want to avoid them by purchasing organically sourced foods when you can. And the Environmental Working Group publishes a list each year of their Dirty 12 and their Clean 15. And you can go onto their website and see their list of what is considered to be the cleanest and the worst offenders of dangerous pesticides. And if it's listed as a Dirty 12, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat them. Just try to find organic to ensure that there are no pesticides. Okay, I've said a lot about food there, and we're going to head now into fasting, which is the opposite of eating. But this is actually really important for brain health. Considering when to eat is something that we talk a lot about when we're talking about brain health. Fasting helps with a variety of concerns like blood sugar levels. Fasting can help stabilize your insulin. It can aid in cell renewal and regeneration. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It can rest your digestive system, reduce inflammation, and help you maintain your body weight. That shrieking noise that I was talking about before, about like turning down the volume. Fasting promotes insulin sensitivity, so that that voice of your cells saying, no more sugar, turn down the volume. Fasting helps promote that sensitivity so that your body isn't inflamed. And also when we fast, our body isn't digesting. And so it can do something called autophagy. It's a fancy word for cell cleaning. It's like when your body is cleaning house and killing off damaged cells. And I know I'm being super simplistic about defining that very complex thing that happens in our bodies. But the important point is when you're fasting, your body is cleaning up and taking care of, of you and healing. So we know it's not easy to fast. So we have a couple of ideas that might make it help a little bit easier to do. One of those things is having an early dinner or even a light dinner. And you can even skip dinner. If you'd like to have breakfast, you can skip it and then you can eat early in the morning. We like at least a 12-hour fast. For some people, you may need a longer fast depending on how much healing you need to do. But you can go slow in trying it out, and you can adjust your meal times so that it's conducive to your family routine and your dinner meal. And if you like to eat dinner with your family, you can definitely do that. Just maybe think about skipping traditionally your 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock breakfast and waiting until lunch to break your fast. And we're not expecting you to do that right off the bat, but maybe you could do it in like increments, and say like one morning you're gonna try to break it at 10, and then the next morning at 10:15, and kind of keep going, pushing it up bit by bit until lo and behold, after a few months, you're breaking fast at noon. We suggest you break fast with room temperature water with some lemon. I drink it all day long. A little ginger also helps with the digestion. And we want to think about stopping eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed to give your body some time to kind of settle in and digest. And I know I have a hard time doing that because I like to snack at night. So one little trick I'll share with you, I have a couple of others up my sleeve, but one little trick I have is I brush my teeth after my meal. Like if I'm going to have dinner at 7 and I'm going to go to bed at 10, I don't want to eat for those 3 hours. So I'll brush my teeth. And then like, it reminds me, oh yeah, I brushed my teeth already. I'm not going to eat. So it's just these little things that you can do as little tricks to kind of help you get through these changes that you're making. All right. So next up is digestion. Actually,
I don't know that that slide doesn't want to stay up there.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to talk about digestion quickly because the brain and the gut are directly interconnected, and it's the foundation of our healing journey. So Lisa mentioned this earlier. It's like what we eat, how we eat, when we eat, the pace of our frenzy when we sit and we eat, all of that, our mind, body, and spirit are so important to our brain. And a lot of us, don't have healthy guts, and there are a lot of reasons for it. Some of it's the food we're eating, some of it's allergies and food sensitivities, some of it's just the stuff, the chemicals that are in our food, medications we're eating, we're taking, alcohol, stress, you name it. That's what's messing up our gut. But we can do a lot to improve our digestion. And, some of it includes just simply how we're eating and, slowing down. Research has shown that actually digestion begins with meal preparation. And so once you start to smell the food, I was smelling my husband cooking dinner, and I can feel my stomach is starting to churn, and enzymes are released that stimulate our digestion. So it's great to involve everyone who's eating to join in meal prep, so their digestion starts to stir. And during mealtime, taking time to chew and being mindful, all of that is wonderful, joyful eating practices. Look up from your plate, enjoy nice conversation. It's important to our gut, and it's also fun. So some other topics that we won't have time for tonight, but we will definitely be covering them in the small groups that Lisa and I are going to be running. These topics include like how to keep your gut, your microbiome healthy, what to buy, how to stock the fridge and pantry, how to read nutritional labels. What about alcohol? How do we deal with sugar cravings? How do we go out and eat healthy? So all of these kinds of topics we are going to be covering in our upcoming program. And I believe that at some point we'll be putting a link in the chat about that. So Lisa, back over to you.
So I just wanted to share with you all, we've got two graphs that I think are really interesting. This one talks about how healthy we live as part of our entire lifespan. And if you look at how we function, the years of health on the left axis and how old we are on the right, the goal is to push that curve out horizontally as far as possible. You want to stay healthy as long as you can throughout your entire life. And, you can see that, someone whose health starts to decline, let's say around 70, and then they die maybe at 78, that decline is actually started even earlier than that. But ideally, you want to stay really healthy until you're about 80, and then see a short decline at the end of life, and really live. I use the term like really be in your life, like be in the lives of the people you love. Stay up with hobbies you have, topics you enjoy. Really stay involved. And the only way to really do that, and you see that, I'm sure we do with our relatives and people we know, is when people's health starts to decline, they're so involved sometimes with their health that there are other interests, and their social life and everything starts to become smaller and smaller. And so the idea is to stay as involved and as healthy as you can throughout life. Now, Samantha is going to share with you a different type of graph.
Yeah, I love this graph. Lisa just talked about the intersection of our life and our health span and how important it is to stay healthy, as we age. And this is like a little secret treasure in aging that research has actually shown that the older we get, the happier we get. There's like this unfortunate divot in our 40s, and maybe it starts to, when we're just dealing with like probably young children and careers that are rapidly, on a trajectory and very demanding. And we're not that happy during those years. It's just a really challenging time. And then we sort of hit 50s and 60s, and look how our happiness increases. And it's just I love this slide because, what greater incentive is it to see this data, this information, and then just to want to feel our best so that we're happy and we're enjoying these later years when we're feeling the most abundant about our lives. So, I hope that the information that you got from us tonight is, gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what's possible. Food is medicine, but it's not the yucky kind of medicine. It's like the most delicious type of medicine, and all the foods that we're talking about are absolutely wonderful. So we'd love to hear from you. If you want to put into the chat, what's one thing you learned today that you will do for your brain? Just one thing, and you can type it into the chat and let us know. Or, yeah, I think you have to type it in. Yeah.
All right, don't be shy. All right, well, maybe we'll get some questions later and people will share, and maybe even share some reluctance, because frankly, we all have our own habits, and we're used to doing things the way we're used to doing them. And the thought of making changes can be off-putting, but frankly, we want our brains to last as long and as well as our bodies and the rest of our lives. So what are some things you're seeing there, Joan?
So one person is going to work better on fasting. Are there supplements we should be taking?
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know what, why don't we'll get through, we have a couple more slides, and then we're going to come back and we are going to address some of those questions.
Okay, and if I can't find organic vegetables, what is the best way to wash and prepare vegetables that aren't organic?
Great question. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to get to those in just a moment. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the small group program coming up. Sharp Again has begun running programs because we know that just getting information often is not enough, that it's hard to put it into action. So that's why last year during COVID, we started running some small group programs to help people improve the habits that contribute to brain health. And there have been some wonderful success stories. So each program has 6 group coaching sessions. It lasts about 10 weeks front to back. There are 2 individual coaching sessions and really extensive education and resources. And 2 coaches are present for each group. And just some testimonials. People have been able to cut down on snacking. They learn from one another. They find the coaching and the group support really helpful. Energy levels have improved. There are many more. I think that just having support and being able to talk about some of the real challenges can be very, very helpful. So if you know someone who you think might benefit from a program around eating for brain health, we also have groups that are not specific about nutrition. They're broader, and they talk about sleep and stress and exercise. Those are starting up again at the after the first of the year, but our program is beginning in a couple weeks. You can email us at info@sharpagain.org, or can just go onto our website, which is sharpagain.org, and it's right on the homepage. So if you have any questions about this, you can ask them tonight, or you can be in touch with us. So while we're talking about visiting sharpagain.org, I also wanted to let those of you listening know that we're running a raffle in the next few weeks, until the end of November, I think it is, for a brand new Apple Series 7 watch and AirPods that go with it. And it's done like a raffle, so you can go, you can buy as many tickets as you want. All the information's on the website, but we just wanted to mention this because it's fun, and it's not that expensive, and it could just be a great way to have one of your holiday gifts taken care of before December starts. You can also, for more information, sign up for our email list. We talk about research, we send out information, we do e-blasts on current, research that comes out. You can either join or refer someone to our programs, again, at that email address, info@sharpagain.org. And we always say that you can support us if you like, so that we can continue to offer the programs like the one you're seeing tonight, but our small groups, our webinars. We go to local fairs, we do national conferences, and it's exciting that we're growing and that the work that we're doing now is fairly well accepted across the globe. It's starting to become much more prevalent, and the research is really confirming everything that we already know. So that's very exciting. So now we are going to turn it over to Q&A, and I'm going to stop my screen share, and feel free again to put questions in the chat. And Joan, if you want to, just read them out again, or Samantha, if you want to do that.
I can read them, and maybe the two of us can decide, who can take it. There's a couple of questions about kind of what about different types of foods, and specifically, how can you tell if a food product is genetically modified? And the question is, well, for potatoes are not labeled, so how do you know if it's genetically modified if there's no label on it? So essentially, if the food is labeled organic, that means that the farmer is prohibited to genetically modify it. So you want to really try as best as you possibly can to find organic produce, of all kinds, not just potatoes. But then there was a question, well, what happens if you can't find organic vegetables? And so how can you clean it? And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but at the supermarket, there are products that you can purchase to wash vegetables, which presumably are pesticide free. Just plain water is also a really great approach. Lisa may have some other ideas. Going to your, farmers markets. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and there are farmers markets all over. Those foods are likely from high quality sources as well. So Lisa, do you have any other ideas?
There are different there are different codes on the labels of fruits and vegetables. And what is the 6 is fair market, fair trade? Is that?
I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with you that, especially the clean 15 and the dirty dozen, I really take those to heart. And those dirty dozen vegetables and fruits, I make sure I buy organic. I also cater to the 80-20 rule. So when you're out to dinner and you're ordering vegetables, let's say, or you're getting them on your plate, chances are, unless it says they're organic, they're not, but you can't worry about everything you're putting in your mouth. So when you go out, enjoy the company you're with, enjoy yourself, try to make good selections. That's something else we're going to talk about in the small group, is eating well when you eat out, and just do the best you can. But again, it's very important to wash all your vegetables. I even wash the ones that say triple pre-washed. Most of the time I just run them through, I put them in a colander and run some water over them and just, give them a little toss around.
Yep. Good. There was a question about mold and in food, and I'd love to talk about nuts and mold, if that's okay, because nuts are something that we don't think about that can get moldy, but actually they can be a huge source of toxins if they're not stored properly. And some little tips that that I often talk about, buying bulk quantities of organic nuts, if you can find them, and seeds, and store them in the freezer. They can actually store in the freezer for up to a year. And in the fridge, they can store for up to 6 months. So
Store nuts in the refrigerator.
nuts in the refrigerator. I don't know who said that, but yes. And if you are going to store them in your pantry at room temperature, please, I'm going to be kind of a broken record about this, but glass jars, glass jars. I'm using mason jars for like everything. I know that there was a big run on mason jars during COVID because everybody was canning at home. But if you can try to find, like a tray of mason jars, 12, or it's like $20. They're like $1.50 each. They are fabulous for storage, for making tea, for whatever you'd like, for drinking out of. Put your seeds and nuts in those glass jars with tight lids, and you can store them for up to 3 months. That will really protect your nuts from mold. Do you have any other ideas, Lisa?
No, I mean, I always put my nuts, for example, in the refrigerator when I buy them. I think the best way to deal with mold in food is to wash things well, and I use the veggie wash.
Yeah,
that really helps to get some of that bacteria off.
right. There was a question as well about food labels or food that is manufactured in other countries, not in the US, and how to know whether it's as stringent as the US. And the USDA does frequently assess the food products coming in from other countries, and there are organic tests or equivalency tests that are done on food products, and then the USDA takes this very seriously. If a farmer is attesting that their products are organic, they will be audited. And again, though, like Lisa said, you don't want to drive yourself crazy, right? The Pareto principle, 80-20, we want to do our best. Doing our best is probably enough. So
I want to thank Sue for putting the different codes in the chat box. So the 8 prefix means it is a genetically modified food. So that's helpful to know. Your fruits and vegetables, I try to avoid those foods. And it's, again, as Samantha was saying, reading labels is really important. Sometimes I forget to read labels, and I'll get home and I'll see an ingredient in something I bought that I wasn't really too keen on. Are there any? Oh, there was a question.
Lisa, I have a question. Artie, my wife couldn't be here for the meeting. She wants to know how she can get a recording of the meeting. She couldn't be here for this meeting.
So we will send out tomorrow to everyone who registered a link to the recording that she'll be able to listen to starting
Oh, there'll be-
tomorrow.
There'll be a link on, there'll be a link on the website.
It won't be on our website. We will send it to you with the email that you registered for the program tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. Um,
Okay.
It's Diane. Is the 7-week course being offered at a different time? It seems like everything is Wednesday at 7 o'clock and I can't.
Well, we're probably going to offer it another time. We're not sure exactly when we're starting this. This is the first time that Sharp Again has offered this. And so I think given how many people signed up for tonight's webinar, there will be interest. And so we will likely do another day, another time
Thank
in
you.
the future. Yeah.
so we're thinking about doing a noontime, possibly like a middle of the day or 1 o'clock around there, as opposed to Wednesday at 7.
Or in addition,
I hear you. A lot of the evening slots get very busy.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? So we know this is a big topic, and if something occurs to you and you want you'd like to ask a question, feel free to email us at info@sharpagain.org. We will definitely get back to you. And we really encourage people who are just starting to notice memory lapses, or if you have memory loss and dementia in your family, to really start early. Prevention is definitely the key going forward. You'll see more and more of this, I guarantee, in the next 5 to 10 years, that the only way we'll be able to curb this significant rise in Alzheimer's and dementia is if people start earlier to pay attention and take these preventive steps. So, this is really probably just the beginning for many people who are being, exposed to some of this information. But, we hope you'll sign up for our email list and just to hear the new information coming out, the new research. So again, feel free to contact us because we're here to help. That's what we do. Okay, and Sue is and Samantha are putting some more information in the chat box about links to the small group program and other small groups. So we hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you again.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bon appetit.